Let's open up this pit. My name is Adam Zuniga. I am the curator and host of KNOTFEST Beer Pit Live. Today we are talking and tasting with Mike Lacouture, both the co-owner, founder, and marketing mastermind behind Broken Goblet Brewing. That is in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Hails, Mike.
I think mastermind is a very strong word.
Ah,
Thank you for that introduction.
I think you deserve it once we get into the story of this beer and the story of the brewery. But before we do, a couple announcements. So first and foremost, we were dark last week out of respect to Joey Jordison. He is one of the founding members and original drummer of Slipknot, truly a god behind the kit. I mean that literally if you see some of the early photos of him. And also judging from the outpouring of love on social media, the man had many friends, and I think that's the greatest compliment of all. So I haven't opened my beer yet, but I'm gonna get it ready because this is definitely for Joey. A little more in the monitors. Otherwise, everyone's been paying attention. KnotFest Iowa was announced for September 25th. KnotFest LA was announced for November 5th. There's a road show in between while Slipknot is touring the country, and I'm going to be working on beer for all those events. So more news on that to come. But for now, I want to talk about the pit. I want to talk about Broken Goblet, and I want to talk about you, Mike. So can you tell us more about yourself and the story behind the brewery? I want to know how you got into craft beer, and I want to know when Broken Goblet was founded.
I will. Yes, I will. But I also want to just quickly raise a personal glass in memory of Joey. He was as a drummer myself, he was somebody that in the time frame in which Slipknot came up really changed how people perceived that type of metal. I think Slipknot actually took metal out of a really weird place and brought it into a more mainstream place. And Slipknot also took a whole generation of kids that felt really weird and teens and young adults that didn't really feel like they fit in and gave them a place to fit in. So, I'm humbled to be the first beer pit person after this awful tragedy, but Slipknot and Joey and all that will be near and dear to our hearts for a long time. So rest in power, dude.
That is most metal and very much
Yes.
appreciated, Mike. I was thinking the same thing, like about how Slipknot changed the game. I was watching Woodstock '99 the other night, and I was just thinking that was really a show for the dudes and the bros. Not that there weren't some good acts there, man, but it's interesting that Slipknot was not. And I think even at that point in time, Slipknot was always different, marching to the beat of their own drummer. So hails to Joey.
Yeah. It sucks. Obviously you start to not forget, but you don't pay attention or remember things. And then when that news came down, just started going through YouTube and watching videos and like just remembering how I felt when the Disaster Pieces DVD came out and watching that drum solo with him, kind of taking the Tommy Lee spinning drum set and bringing it into a genre that I appreciated more, or
Yeah.
just watching the energy and seeing how they did these really, I mean, especially Joey did this really amazingly complicated and fast paced and not even in a real tradition, like not even in a way that drummers today are playing at the BPMs he was playing, but doing it in a mask with a little slit and doing it in like a garage jumper. It was something you just never seen and probably will never see again. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take
No.
your question and completely not answer it.
Not at all. Not at all. No, I love it. I'm going to admit I've never actually seen Slipknot live, but that is all about to change with KnotFest on the road show. And I think that's going to change everything, man. So again, RIP to Joey. I'm going to be drinking to him in just a moment. I'm going to be doing my best to watch the chat on Twitch as well. 97 Maza, yo, I have a sneaking suspicion who you are, but I don't know for sure. So you can give us a hint if you want. But I really appreciate you coming back time and time again for KnotFest Beer Pit Live. This is a chance to talk beer with bands. It's a chance to talk bands with breweries. And in this case, one-on-one between me and Mike from Broken Goblet. And we are also going to bring our unofficial host and returning champion subscriber in, Eric Masunas. He'll be here in just a moment.
Maza is on the hardcore Keem show a lot. and or
Really?
it was right before you, and I just know the name, but Keem is a big fan of a lot of bands that I'm friends with locally here in the Philadelphia area. So he
Nice.
probably was in the chat when Keem was watching some of my friends' bands. So just
Okay.
yeah.
All in the
Anyway,
family.
yeah. All
We
right.
also
Let me
have,
answer the question. I fucking just totally.
no, no. In one sec, Mike, we also have All That Remains 6 joining in. He says, how's it going? All That Remains 6, it's going great. It's that much more metal now that you were here. RIP to Joey from you as well. We're going to be drinking Kolsch here in just a moment. But before we get to it, Mike, by all means, let's talk
Yep.
about you and the
Sorry.
brewery.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got into beer. Tell me when the brewery was founded.
Yeah. So this brewery was really founded on metal music, which sounds cliche, but it's actually a true statement. But I was in a band, and we were recording in a studio, and guy that predominantly did metal bands, kind of local metal bands, but you could tell that he had a bit more attention to detail than most. And so we were recording. I guess at that time it was probably our first full length album with him. Excuse me. And I'm being the drummer and kind of being a OCD about it. You know, we would record and then we would just sit there, and he would mix and what do you think of this and what do you think of this tone, and we would do it for hours until like 2 or 3 in the morning. And while we were doing it after the recording was done, because you don't want to totally botch this stuff up because you're paying for it, we would just drink and talk. So we became tight, and at some point, and I want to say this is like 2009, we were sitting there one night, or maybe it might have been 2010, but right around that time frame, we were sitting there and we were lamenting how metal has gotten so weird, in terms of the bands that were out. You really can't create a career around being a local metal musician like you maybe could have half a decade prior to that. You really had to commit to the tour and commit to being, a struggling artist. And a lot of us weren't really prepared for that, but we're just sort of lamenting, like, what do we do? What is our day jobs? And what would we like to do? And the conversation turned to, what would you do if you could do anything? And sort of simultaneously, we said, I don't know, like open a bar or a brewery or something. And this is like 2009, 10. So craft breweries, there was like this many as opposed to now.
Yeah.
But it was pretty novel at the time. And the way that Jay, who ultimately became one of the owners here, the way he and I kind of functioned is that as soon as we said that, he had a whiteboard, and he, like, saved the audio file, picked up the whiteboard, and was like, well, if we were going to do that, like, if you were going to do that, what would it look like? So we started writing. And within, like, I would say an hour to an hour and a half, we had several names, a logo, like a mission statement, and some ideas. Like, and
A
so the
business
whole
plan.
brewery was born that night. But the one thing we knew at that time was that we could never ever actually open a brewery, because neither of us knew how to brew beer, and neither of us did like anything even remotely close to service industry. So we're like, what could we do that would be creative to try to figure this out? So what we decided to do was form a beer club. So we formed this
Whoa.
beer club called the Brutal Beer Club. And what we said is, we're gonna recruit members. We're gonna bring them in. We're just gonna drink, do bottle shares, have live music, put on events, maybe comedy, whatever. Um, and then within the people that we get in, maybe we'll meet some people who actually know what the fuck they're doing,
Hell
and
yeah.
go from there. So this beer club grew from this 13 people to about 100 people that would come every month and would pay money to come for this. And so out of the beer club, we ended up finding two more people. One was Jay's brother, who was really interested in homebrew but had never wanted to pursue it, and somebody else. So the brewery was really born out of this club that was happening in a music studio after we recorded. And now flash forward, we own a music venue that's attached to a brewery. It's kind of wild where we are now, and there's just the three owners right now. It's myself, Jay, and his brother Bub, and it's really kind of a brewery built on music, and it has its foundation in the horns of metal.
Oh, that is most metal. So we met initially, I think, at Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. Shout out to them. Um, a lot of love for what Broken Goblet does. I certainly appreciate all the tool references and your names and your your names and your recipes. That's good fun. But beyond that, man, I think I've read the backstory on some of your social and your website. I knew there was some frustration around using the name Brutal,
Brutal.
which developed that frustration, I guess, was exercised by breaking some glassware, and Broken Goblet came as a result.
Correct.
Uh, I feel like there's a Brutal brewery somewhere in like New Zealand or Australia or something, and I don't know where that's what the conflict was.
There's actually one that opened. We were just part of something with Matt McGachy and the Vox and Hops, if you're familiar with them. By the way, he actually messaged me and said to say hello.
So,
But
yeah,
we just did his Brutal North America. Brutal spelled the same way. But then there was a brewery in there called Brutal, and I saw it and I kind of laughed because I'm like, man, the brewery that we got in this big fight with would have sued the shit out of them,
yeah.
you know, 5 years ago. But I guess now there's so many breweries, it's so hard to keep track of it that maybe they just don't care anymore. But yeah, we were in a big, we definitely were David versus Goliath with the top 10 brewery in the country in terms of size and scale, um, battle over a trademark that we owned. And it just, we can't afford to fight that in court, even though
Well,
we were on the right side of it. So
yeah. I'm glad all said and done, you ended up as Broken Goblet. It's a good story to tell, and we have some great beer to drink as a result.
yeah.
So before we actually crack it open, tell us a little bit about the story behind the beer. I'm not going to say this was made for the beer pit, but you were good enough to work with me and collaborate with me. We knew you had a Kolsch in production,
Yeah.
and you could basically metal up that Kolsch and kind of steer it in the direction and the aesthetic appropriate to the beer pit. So just tell us a little bit about the story of the beer and how you kind of landed on the idea of a little more for the monitors, a little more in the
Yeah,
monitor.
well, I mean, we're musicians, so the whole relationship between the sound guy and the lighting guys and the rigging guys, the stagehands and stuff is, you can either be a total prick about it and have a really bad experience, or you can make friends with sound guys and you can treat them with the respect that they deserve, and ultimately have a great show. And something we learned in our band, very, very, very early, and also with Jay being a sound guy, like it just, it made sense that we've always treated those people like with the importance that they have. So when we were talking, we had wanted to do a beer for the sound guys, kind of as an homage. And then we wanted to do a beer that's actually coming out next week for the lighting guys. So,
Nice.
so when we were talking about what beers are going to be out, it was a perfect time to kind of launch that brand, which is something I wanted to do anyway. And it's a perfect beer for it because sound guys, don't want to be sitting there drinking 9% double IPAs. A beer like a Kolsch or a Czech lager or something like that is um, a great beer to, you can have several of them, still be on point. It's not too heavy. And so that's where that concept came from. And it's really just a kind of a funny thank you to, and we have some fantastic friends that got us our stage and set us up with our lights and sound here at the brewery that, we wouldn't be anything without them. So,
Yeah.
we pay respect to the sound guys and the lighting guys out there, and guys and girls out there, every day.
Most metal. There's a good message in all this, and that is, man, respect your crew. Never forget your backline. Know what beer and metal are built upon. Know who is
Oh,
supporting your art and making it all possible. So, very positive message, especially given the time that this beer came out, as everyone's getting back to live music,
yeah.
tentatively, hopefully, but venues are reopening, tap rooms are reopening. It's great that you can host bands at Broken Goblet. Um, let's get into the beer. We have in the chat 428-35648, which more or less sounds like a phone number. Maybe it's a digit short. But story time it was, and thank you for some of the backstory behind the beer, Mike. I am going to bring in our returning subscriber and our unofficial host, Mr. Eric Masunas. Let me update here. Eric,
You
can you
like my
see
background?
us? Welcome back. I
I had,
love
I had to move my desk. Yeah, I had to move my desk for work
it.
on the upstairs, and so there was nothing behind me anymore. So I finally figured it out, and so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw this up there.
Most metal and very, very fitting, my friend. So anyone new in the chat, anyone who's watching for her first time joining us, KNOTFEST Beer Pit Live, again, it's a chance to bring in subscribers from the beer pit to chat and interact with brewers, with fans. Eric has been a returning champion and therefore unofficial host. He's earned a lower third and I think outdone my Six Most Metal Breweries poster for the backstop. Eric, can you just tell us just real quick kind of where you are, who you are, how you connected with the beer pit, what you do as a home brewer?
Yeah, so I'm in North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh. I'm president of our home brew club here, and it's half brew club, so it's half drinkers, half brewers. So kind of similar to the story that you were telling. We tried to incorporate everybody in there. So yeah, and I found the beer pit through on Twitter. I was talking to Adroit Theory, and they said it, even though they're in Virginia, they couldn't get it to North Carolina, and they said, well, you know what, we're going to be in the beer pit box in the first box. So I joined up and had gotten the box every month ever since. So
Cool. Much appreciated, Eric. Grateful for it. Let's crack open this beer. I'm glad you've managed to hold on to a can of
that's right.
more on the monitors. So this was in the 666 degrees box, which we launched in June.
Great box.
Style of beer for this time of year. So let me get it going here. And Mike, tell us a little bit about the label art, and then if you could literally walk us through a tasting, the aroma,
Yeah.
the flavor, and the finish, please.
Yeah, the label. I mean, the label art is we have a graphic designer and then myself. We kind of collaborate on a lot of stuff. So we were looking for something that had a bit of an edge to it, but that also incorporated the whole speaker concept. So it kind of sat nice. It had a nice t-shirt level t-shirt width, so to speak. So it sits nice on a can. I think it came out cool with the pink pop and then the hop leaves. Kolsch is and this is, I had to pour it in a glass. This is the kind of beer you can drink right from a can. Like but I did this just so we could talk a little bit about it. It's kind of hard to see, I don't know, but it's, the clarity of this beer is fantastic. You want your Kolsch to be clear-ish. If you agitate it a little bit, you might get some sediment from the bottom. But if you pour it, yours was on an airplane, so I know why yours is shaking up a little bit. But you want to see that effervescent bubbles. Kolsch is a really cool style of beer, and I mentioned it in the label, in the description, because Kolsch is a kind of jack of all trades beer. Basically it's a beer that is warm fermented like an ale. So everything kind of sits into these categories based on the type of yeast that you use. The predominant two areas are lagers and ales. Some would argue probably that you could put sours in a mixed fermentation somewhere else. But just for the sake of argument, let's just say there's two kinds. And it really depends on the yeast you use and where they ferment and the temperatures. So lagers are cold fermenting. They ferment from the bottom. They ferment at a much lower temperature. They take a lot longer to ferment. Ales are top fermenting uh, beers that are a lot quicker. So the way the Kolsch is made is that you ferment it like an ale with an ale yeast, but then you basically cold crash it and then let it sit and develop like you would a lager. And so what you end up getting is a lot of the characteristics that people love about lagers and pilsners. So that kind of crisp, very lightly hopped, very uh, minimal extra flavor to it. But then you get a little bit more body because it's an ale yeast. You get, in my mind, you get a little bit more sweetness from the malts. So, when you smell a beer like this, it's going to immediately kind of remind you of a lager you may have had because you're just getting kind of a crisp, low bitterness, very low bitterness, probably in the 20 to 25 IBUs, and you might get a little malt sweetness. When you sip on it, you're going to get a little bit more of that light sweetness from the malts. You might get a little punch from the hops because it's not using super traditional lager hops, but then it finishes nice and dry and crisp. So it also tends to be a little bit higher ABV. This one I think is 5.2. Generally, Kolsch, just because they're initially warm fermented, they tend to run a little bit hotter, so they're a bit bigger. But you shouldn't get any kind of alcohol flavors. You really should get nothing. You can't hide anything in this beer whatsoever unless you decide to put a bunch of shit in it. And what you end up getting is kind of a jack of all trades. And that's the way I wrote the description, was that I feel like sound guys are jack of all trades, because they, not only are they running sound, but they're, they have to be experts at wiring. They have to, fix pots on the fly. They got to make sure that the mics are in the right position. They have to run around like crazy people. They have to constantly cater to the band members that want all this shit in their monitors, and are constantly like pointing up and then pointing at somebody. So it really made sense. And I will say, in closing on this beer, uh, we've made about 120 different beers in our 7 years. Top five. By
Cool.
no exaggeration, no hyperbole, because I'm sitting here with you two. Top five.
That's metal.
I could drink the shit out of this beer repeatedly and consistently.
Most metal. I love it. Just to back up everything you're saying, I mean, it's hot in Los Angeles where I am right now, so the beer really hits the mark. That mark is 11. I said on social this beer goes to 11, but we are on a mission in the beer pit to prove that big beers don't always have to be extreme boozy beers. Metal beers are quality beers. This one really hits the mark. I mean, it's super refreshing. It's beer that's meant for warm weather drinking. It's beer that's meant for drinking, period. It's beer that's meant for a show. It's definitely beer that's meant for soldiers of soundboards who are working that show and making it possible. I love Kolsch. I love it that I don't smell hops the moment I open it. Like, it is definitely malt driven in both aroma and flavor. It finishes clean. I already had a couple of these. I'm not going to lie. I couldn't wait. If you pour it out completely and drink it as quickly as I originally did, yes, there is some yeast. There's still some sediment in the bottom of the can that can cloud it. But if you're careful and you pour carefully, it's a beautiful beer. It's clear as is intended.
We don't have some of the filtration apparatus here that we would want. So we really kind of rely on the simpler. We rely on finings, and then we do have a lenticular filter, which is kind of jargon for just like a pool filter sort of apparatus. But we don't have the ability to strip everything out. But for a beer like this, it's okay that it's got a little bit of stuff in the bottom of it, because that is the joke, is it's flavor crystals. But for a beer like this, you want there to be a little bit more body and flavor to it, because it is an ale. It's an ale that drinks and looks like a lager.
So a couple questions. So on that note, I kind of spoke to it before. For people at home that are confused, this idea of kind of like a hybrid beer that straddles the line between ale and lager, like, what would you say from a flavor perspective really identifies and marks the difference with Kolsch? Like, how is a Kolsch different from a lager like a Pilsner? How is a Kolsch different from a blonde ale or a cream ale or like a Cali Common steam beer? Like, what does Kolsch really kind of ride the line and make its mark?
It's very, very close to just the traditional Pilsner, but it has a bit more malt sweetness to it. It's subtle, but it does have a bit more sweetness. It almost bridges towards a cream ale. And people that don't know, they hear cream ale and they think cream ale is like we're adding cream or even milk sugar to it, but that's not what it is.
Right.
But it just cream ales tend to have a little bit of corn in them. But this beer just bridges towards that because it's got the malt sweetness and it's not over attenuated because of the way the yeast works. So, if you're looking kind of in the scale of lagers and pilsners and then up into the ales, it literally sits right in the middle, because the next step up would probably be a cream ale or some sort of pale ale that's using simple hops that won't overbitter it. This style, generally, you can get a couple different flavors that are not in this one, but it's okay if you're judging it. You can get an ounce of sulfur in there, and that's okay. You can even have a tiny little bit of green apple, although it's not something you want, but it doesn't take it out of style. But generally, this is just a simple middle of the road beer. When somebody walks in the brewery, and it happens all the time, and they say, and we can tell they're not normally coming to craft beer bars, they're just coming for the music. So they might say, what do you have that's like, and when they name a beer, if they name anything other than Miller Lite, we generally point them towards this beer.
Sure.
Because it has just enough body to it that they're getting a craft, but they're not also getting bombarded with stuff that they probably don't like. If they say they like Miller Lite or Coors Light, we might push them more towards a light lager that we have, or just a plain Jane Pilsner. But this is a really nice, and I think it's been described as a very introductory craft beer to start to get you to see and feel and taste the where an ale can take you in the spectrum. Because lager yeast is kind of, it does one thing, it does it really well, but it
Yep.
does one thing, and then once you get into ales, it just goes
All right.
everywhere.
I buy it. Tell us, like, again, not that I don't love my IPAs, but the hops are only in this beer for balance, if that. What are the hops in the beer?
Hercules, Bub. What are the? Sorry, I'm asking the actual brewer. Bub, what were the hops in Callista, Hercules, and Hugh Melon? So these are low alpha acid, low bitterness hops.
Yeah.
We put them in the boil, so they add, when all these IPAs they're really a game of where you add the hops at what point and for how long. So the world of brewing has just changed so much recently, or not recently, but the last 5 or 6 years. And the way that brewers are playing with hops now is insane. These hops are being added in a very traditional part of the brew. They add very little bitterness. They're almost there for show, and they're there for a little bit of citrus. I mean, you get a little fruit on the nose.
Yeah.
I would say that those hops will add an ever so slight mango flavor, but you really don't get that. What you get here is a clean and crisp beer.
It's a really interesting combination of hops for the
Yeah.
style. Again, because it is so malt driven, and I'm assuming it's 100% malt. There's no adjuncts otherwise.
Nothing. You just want it. You want it to look like honey. Clear honey. That straw yellow to honey color. No, don't add. We didn't dry hop it. We didn't do anything of the sort. We just pure and simple beer. And if we know that it financially doesn't make sense, but if all we could brew is this stuff, we would. It's all
Nice.
we would brew.
Nice. And for anyone watching from home, when I say 100% malt, what I mean is 100% barley malt. And there's obviously other ways to brew beer. There's different kind of sugar substitutes you can use, but barley malt is, to Mike's point, the most expensive, but it is also the most flavorful, the most robust.
Just
simple
recipe. Great beer.
Yeah. All right. I buy everything you're saying, but I'm going to bring Eric in here to ask the tough questions.
It's going to be like, fuck you, Mike. You're all wrong. Let me tell you why.
No, not even. But good cop, bad cop scenario. I've been home brewing myself, but I'm by no means a home brewer. So, Eric, I'm just curious, like from a home brewing perspective, what questions do you have? What is your impression of the beer? What do you want to ask Mike?
Yeah, a perfect description of the beer. It's like as soon as you drink it, it's like, oh, I either am sitting outside listening to music, drinking the beer, or I'm at a concert and I just ordered it and I'm sitting there listening to music. So it ties in perfectly with it. That crisp Kolsch style beer. How did you settle on that? Because it, like you said, it kind of skirts both sides, and sometimes breweries are like all lagers or they're all ales, and they don't really cross over that very
It's
often. So,
it's a great question. When we started, so the facility that we're in now we've been in here for 2 years, but we started in a facility that was 1/10 the size of this, and we started in a electric filament brew system with plastic fermenters and no temperature control for 5 years. 5 years. Not to put that down because we did it, but we made a decision in the beginning that if we had no fucking clue what we were doing, we were not going to spend a ton of money on the equipment, because then we would not feel bad when we failed that we had to sell this equipment.
Right.
So we were brewing on equipment that made it next to impossible to lager a beer.
yep.
But we always said at the time, like, if we can make it through and get to someplace else, God willing, and we're doing something with a better system and a bigger system, all we want to do, not all we want to do, but what we really want to do is start cranking out lager beers.
Nice.
So when we got to the new spot, invested in the system you see behind me, which is what we bought it from Deutsche, which is out of North Carolina. I forget what town they're in, but they're awesome. That's the company that made all our brew system. And we said, if we get a system, we're going to get a really good system. We're going to get a system that allows us to go as far as doing decoctions and step mashes. And we're going to make sure we have all the vessels that we need to do some really traditional beers. And so we got it. We got up and running. COVID hit. And then we're like, all right, we got to make money.
Ooh.
Like, it's COVID. So what are we making? We're making pastry stouts. We're making lactose IPAs. Did I say pastry stouts? So we're making all these beers, and then, but we're like, you know what? We actually started working with an award-winning German brewer at the time to kind of come into the brew house to help Bub and the other guys kind of fine-tune the lager brewing, so that we said, when we come out of COVID, we're coming out strong. So we had on our list Pilsners, Czech Pils, Kolsch, lagers, Helles lager, which was one of my, like, I need that beer. I need that beer in my mouth right now. And so we had this all set up, my box, Doppelbox, the whole 9 yards, so that we came out of COVID and we just came out charging. So this was the second or third. But what we're trying to do is every month we're trying to release at least one or two lagered beer. So the Kolsch was just a natural progression of that, even though it's not truly a lager. But we wanted to make sure we knew how to do it, and also get a nice brand that aligned with us and what we cared about. So the whole little more in the monitors, and then the one that's coming out next week is a Czech Pils for the light guys and girls. So we wanted to set those brands up because that's evergreen. That you're never going to have a show that isn't better with good lights. You're never going to be at a show that doesn't sound awesome that you remember it more. So we thought, let's pay a little respect to them with these beers. So that's where the Kolsch came from.
Oh, Mike, cool. That's excellent. A couple things for people listening and watching from home. So from our friend 97 Mazza, they say join the beer pit at KNOTFESTBeerPit.com. I'm going to second that. 97 Mazza, you're our biggest cheerleader next to Eric. Hopefully we can actually beat you live on screen at some point. And Mike, for everyone listening to what you said, I mean, yes, you're talking about like COVID time. What do we do to like maximize profit and make the most money? So lactose-laden IPAs, pastry stouts, like these are big, boozy beers with a lot of flavor, and I think they're typically perceived, therefore, as like being more expensive or having more value. And maybe there is some truth in that sometimes, depending on what you put in it. But to your point about lagers, to your love for Helles, to this Kolsch, these are arguably more expensive, more time-consuming, more kind of labor-heavy beers to make. The Kolsch, I mean, because it is technically an ale in this case, I'm assuming you could turn around a bit quickly. But how long did you cold condition it? Like, how long was it actually in the tanks?
What a great point, Adam. This is such a wildly crazy concept that you're giving me a platform to talk about. So I'm going to use it. So in this, and I told our people, I'm like, I'm going deep on these questions, so I'm going to go deep. In this industry, people think that if you put out a lager or a pilsner or anything that is clear, that it should be cheap.
Yep.
It needs to be cheaper. And that's been established because if you put out a orange juice looking triple, it should be expensive. And so the first thought is, well, the hops are expensive, which is totally true. But you brought up a fantastic fucking point, which is these beers, while that the grain bill and hop bill are not expensive, every day that the beer sits in a tank longer than 10 days to 14 days is money.
Yep.
Money you're not realizing because it's sitting. It's why barrel-aged beers are so expensive, because they sit in a barrel, but at least a barrel is not taking up, your sort of you
all
look
your
at
tanks.
Your brew house. Yeah, you look at your brew house like it's an airport, and you've got planes coming in and coming out. You got to park them somewhere. Yeah. They got to take off, and it's like a dance, right?
I like it.
The brew house is like a dance because you have to plan so far ahead. So when we start saying we're going to start putting out all these long-term beers, well, that's financially tough. But if we released this beer and said it's going to be $16 a 4-pack, we would they would tell us to get fucked. They would be outside with pitchforks. You can't release a Kolsch, a 5.2% Kolsch, and charge $16 for it. fuck you, Mike. Fuck all of you. But if this was a 9-day turn IPA and I wanted to charge 17 for it, well, okay. Yeah. But it's got Simcoe in it. So it's a little more. So you bring up a great point, and that is respect the breweries, and I'm not saying respect us, but respect breweries that do put out these beers.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid that if you pay $15 for a 4-pack of that beer, because you'll know the first sip you take if you got. And it sucks, or it's got diacetyl in it or whatever, you're going to be like, all right, these guys are beat. But if you get that beer and it tastes crisp and it tastes clean and you like it, there's a lot of work that went into that beer. And you can't hide shit in this beer.
Yeah.
You can't hide anything. I
Yep.
can't dump fucking coffee in this. I guess I could. But I can't dump coffee in this to hide defects. I can't dump lactose in this to hide defects. So respect the breweries out there who are fighting against the good. They're fighting the good fight by releasing these type of beers because they're harder to make. They take longer. Ultimately, they're more expensive in the grand scheme of things, but they're not making as much money on these beers as they are the other ones. So roundabout to your point, COVID, what do? I make a pastry stout. We make a pastry stout. We put lactose in it. We dump strawberry puree in it. We dump, whatever, marshmallows, and you get that beer. And they're great. And I like that people like them. And I thank them and I love them for buying them. But don't discount the work that goes into this.
Well said. Most metal. Very much agreed, Mike. I will give you this platform and this soapbox to talk on anytime and any day. We've said, a lot of brewers on here have said, know your metal brewery. I think what you just said is even more important. Like, respect your brewer. Respect the brewer. Pastry styles and lactose IPAs, I mean, they have their time and their place, and more power to more breweries who can do it and everything else. That demand and that price point is fueled by hype breweries. The
It is.
perception of Kolsch lager being like cheaper or somehow lesser is fueled by big beer, and obviously everything kind of post-prohibition when breweries consolidated and mass adjunct laden lager was the norm and there was no variety. So it still has that stigma attached to it. But I think it's great that not only Broken Goblet with the Kolsch lager selection, but we're seeing more craft breweries around the country that are devoted to commissioning lager production, flying the flag for it, taking it back. I respect and relate to everything you said earlier about the trials of starting a beer club. Obviously, that's what we're doing here with KNOTFEST Beer Pit. And I don't want every box to be up on IPAs because those also have the sort of shelf life, so
Sure.
they're more
Yeah.
volatile. I want a variety and a diversity.
But dude, I
So
mean, and I want to say
we're
this.
very much on the same.
I want to say this. I'm not begrudging anybody that drinks and likes those beers. We're a very inclusive brewery here. So if you like that beer, that's awesome. And I'm not knocking it. Ever. I would never knock it. I'm just saying about the respect. But consider this. A brewery puts out, and Eric, I'd like to get your take as a consumer, but also a home brewer. Untapped. A beer like this goes on Untapped. It is guaranteed to be less than 4. Even the best ones are going to be under 4, even from the hype breweries. Now, why is that? But if it is a big, if I'm in Vermont and I'm brewing a double IPA with lactose and orange peel and whatever, and it's a hype enough brewery, it's foam, not just because I was just in Vermont. It's foam or it's Alchemist or whoever it is, and you put out that IPA, you're pretty much guaranteed 4.25 average, maybe better, 4.3. I don't know. Why is that? And it gets to what you're saying, Adam, is that there's not enough respect paid to these beers, and so this hype machine drives and drives and drives and drives, and pretty soon a brewery could just release all IPAs. It doesn't matter. Their Untapped score is going to be good.
Yeah.
And if they did release periodically a Kolsch or an ale or a Kolsch or a Pils or something, it would still do well. But any of us peons that release these, you're relegated to the shithole, baby. You're 3.5 or less, and it lowers our Untapped score, and then we're
Yeah.
fucked.
Yeah. Before you answer that, Eric, Mike, I want to give a shout to Derek System MB out in Twitch land. He's saying $15 for a 4-pack in NYC would be a steal for this beer. I'd be lining up, no pitchfork needed to get this at Broken Goblet. So I think there's a lot of beer drinkers out there that understand the message. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, you nailed it perfectly with Untapped. It's kind of like, the superlatives in the yearbook. It's a very much a popularity contest. People just put what they think they should put. And, like it said, it's the hype train that drives most of it. And it's unfortunate for the breweries, especially. I mean, all the ones I've talked to around here, all the brewers and all their marketing people and everything, and they're like, same exact problem. So it's across the country, and it drives everyone crazy. I don't have an answer for it. I do know, from the brew club, whether it's people that actually homebrew or just the craft beer drinkers, they all say the same thing. After a while, you're just like, I just want a beer. Like, I just want a pale ale. I just want a Kolsch. I just want a Pilsner. I just want something that is just true to style, simple, nothing added to it. Just you brewed it. This is the way it was meant to be, and this is the way it was originally done. And those are so refreshing, and they hit home perfectly because it's like, yes, I forgot. You don't want to take anything away from all the fruited stuff or all the added pieces to things, and because those have their time and place too, and I enjoy them like anybody else. But
Sure.
after a while, it's nice to go back to almost like, to your roots, and you're like, oh, this is just a beer and it's great.
Beer that tastes like beer. No, very,
Yes.
very well said. Mike, I wanted you on the live tasting, and I wanted Broken Goblet in the pit just because I know from when we met at Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, you're not afraid to speak your mind. And
I'm sorry, man. I'm old. I'm an
I
old
won't
man.
I welcome it. I appreciate it. I don't want to turn this into like a rant and a rave, but I don't think this is talk just for like the beer geeks and the beer nerds out there. I think, and I don't know how often these conversations are having, and I think just for beer consumers right now, trying to make sense out of both like the macro and micro or craft market, like this is an important discussion to be having. So thank you for weighing in, my friend.
just drink what you like. It's cool. Drink what you like. You don't have to rate it. Just drink what you like. Just
Okay.
drink what you like.
Okay. I want to steer this towards music a little bit, and especially since you were so passionate talking about Joey Jordison in the beginning of the live chat, and
Yeah.
knowing that you're a drummer now, which I didn't before. Just what is the connection for you between craft beer and heavy metal?
I mean, it stemmed from the opening of the brewery, but our band. I was in kind of a progressive metalcore band. It was pretty, I guess, the best way to describe me, bridge towards deathcore.
Yes.
But we were quirky, and but we always treated the industry and we treated the music scene in a different way than other bands. We were very professional as a bunch of drunk band dudes could be, but we always wanted to be the one with the most merch, the ones that when you went to a local show and there was 9 bands on there, that you were the band that stood out. And so when the brewery started, it was amazing that Jay and Bub and I were like, there's so many corollaries between being in a local music band or even a national, but more local music band and starting a brewery at the time we did, because you have to sort of separate yourself from the other breweries. And I don't mean that in a ranking system. I just mean what's going to make you different
Yes.
so that you can find your niche. But then also, we were like, well, let's have a lot of merch and let's have a powerful social media presence and let's do a lot of videos and stuff like that, that makes it a little bit more engaging as a band. I found owning a brewery and being in a band almost unbelievably hyper similar. And
Uh,
then you also had to treat it like signing with a distributor, like signing with a record label. So when our band finally got signed, and it took like 8 or 9 years, when we finally got signed, and I'm like reading through the contract, when I got to the sign our distribution contract at PA, I'm like, it's wild how similar they were. And
Yeah.
also it was like, you can never leave your record label unless and in PA, like you can't leave your distributor unless they dump you or they shelf you or whatever, or they can shelf you, but not dump you. And it's the same with record labels. So I just found it to be so similar. And, and also I just think the creativity, the willingness to poke fun, have fun, be fun, being in a metal band, I don't think there's another genre of music I'll go to my grave feeling this way that's more creative, more talented around the industry besides just when you're on stage than metal musicians. I mean, we are, and I'm proud to say I am one of them. We're the best. We're the best genre of music. We're the best people. We're the most misunderstood. We're the nicest people. We're the most confused people to others. We look different, we sound different, we act different, but I wouldn't trade being a metalhead for anything in the world,
Hell
ever.
yeah. I'm going to second, well, everything you just said. But first of all, I love the connection between, or the comparison between signing with a record label and a distributor. I ask this question to everyone, and I'm always amazed at the number of different answers I get. There's certain obvious parallels. And yeah, sometimes it does literally begin like from a band that went off, started a brewery. Sometimes the answer is I grew up on like comic books, horror movies, and heavy metal. Sometimes the answer is we started a brewery, we started putting out more beers. We realized everyone working for us and with us is a metalhead, so therefore we are a metal brewery. Whatever the reason is, it's led multiple people to this path. It's a great road to be on. It's a great neighborhood to be a part of. And to your point, I mean, all my life, I have realized metal people are good people, beer people are good people, and no matter how fucking intimidating or scary some metalhead might look, they're some of the nicest people on earth. So, I'm going to open up another beer now, Mike, just for that.
Dude, let me tell you, and you have a good appreciation of what I'm about to say. Decibel Metal and Beer Fest.
Yeah.
For those watching don't know what it is, it's a 2-day extreme metal concert that's also a beer fest with 12 to 20 breweries. I've been to hundreds personally, beer fests, and obviously as a brewery owner, worked them and whatever.
Yep.
The nicest, most respectful, least shitty, best patrons ever at a beer fest, Decibel Metal and Beer Fest.
Look at that.
You go to a general beer fest and people are just like, let me get the one that's gonna fuck me up, or whatever. They have comments, they'll drink it, they'll throw it away in front of you. Like, and I'm definitely being over dramatic with it because not everybody's like that. But Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, dude comes up, giant gauges, got a pin through his head. Who fucking knows? It's tatted all over the place. Hey, my friend, can I try what would you recommend? Strike some conversation. And I remember just standing there being like, this is the nicest beer fest I've ever been to. The night ends and all these randos that have been out just fucking moshing in their leather jackets and jeans, shirts are torn, they're all fucking wrecked. There might be some blood on them. Hey, do you guys need any help? Anything we could do to help? Like, that to me is the epitome of why metalheads are the best.
Yeah.
And that beer fest brings out to, and I tell Al from Decibel all the time, I want to be a part of the Decibel Beer Fest forever because it warms my heart every fucking year because everybody is so cool. It's just it's amazing.
Well, just wait until you see the KNOTFEST Beer Pit tent I have in the works, Mike.
I bet it's going to be rad.
It is, of course, inspired by and with credit to Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. And I met you there along with so many others. And there's a great spirit to the festival. There's a great spirit to metal and beer together. Tell me present day kind of what you're listening to. Like, what's playing in the brew house? What albums do you all typically have overhead while the brewers are at work?
That's a good question. From a metal perspective, we go all over the place. We've been jamming to a band, some local-ish guys called Hath, Hath. They're from the area. They're like a tech death band, but they just have something about them that's to me is just transcendently good. They're friends, so I'm biased, but just the way the songs are written. And the funny thing is, like, half of the band is also in a pop punk band, and then they play this incredibly complicated tech death metal. They also put out like an album under a different name that was all Skyrim, the video game, Skyrim influenced, like every
Nice.
song.
Nice.
And so I'm a video game guy. We all are here, so that was awesome. So I would listen to a lot of Hath. We're older. We're men of a certain age. We're in our 40s, so so we don't listen to a lot of newer metal. I am a huge Unearthed fan. Huge
Yeah.
Unearthed fan. So we do listen to a lot of Unearthed. Lamb of God gets a lot of play here. We
Nice.
actually listen to a lot of hair metal here. Like
Oh,
if Whitesnake comes on, forget about it. Like we may actually stop the process and just air guitar for a bit with a little Whitesnake or any kind of the more efficient, like I would say proficient hair metal bands.
yeah.
Um, and then of a newer genre, newish genre music, I love the bands on Sumerian. So I'm a huge fan of After the Burial, Born of Osiris. That sort of very techie, gent type of music.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of it. And the bouncier and the more rhythmic it is, the better. But then we listen to a lot of Meshuggah here, which I would say is kind of the granddad of gent. Which, unless you know what the fuck you're listening to, you would just be confused by it. So we're really all over the place. Is the answer to that question?
Nice. Um, Eric, why don't you weigh in here as well, man? Because I mean, this combination between beer and metal and beer and music, fermentation comes in all forms and it can be enjoyed in all ways. Why don't you tell us a little bit? What do you listen to? What do you see as the connection between beer and metal, beer and music? What's your preference?
Well, I think it influences the beer. So, like, depending on which, like, what you're brewing and what you're drinking while you're brewing, and that kind of like what influences what is what's playing. um, I usually get help from one of my neighbors, so he usually wanders over, and so he got me into alien weaponry. I think they're out of New Zealand, but they're young kids, but they're amazing. They're really, really good. They just came out with another new album, so they've been fun to listen to. So, when that comes on, then it's like, all right, now things speed up and get a little crazy. So
Uh,
I think it definitely ties into it.
you're absolutely right. I mean, same with life, same with the day, same with the workout. Like I've had a brewer who will remain nameless try to tell me that beer does not like metal, and I'm just like, fuck that, and fuck you, man. Beer spends most of its life in metal. Like that's the truth.
Come
Yeah.
on, dude. Say who the brewer. Just name the brewer. Just say it. Come on. It's
I
okay.
won't do it.
It's all right.
I won't do
It's all
it.
right.
But I do think metal helps the process, and I do think loud and energetic and aggressive music can help the process because I mean it is hard work, it is heavy fucking labor. So I mean, to me, metal fuels that, but people are also finding this expression in different kinds of music, and I welcome that as well.
It helps you find another gear, especially if you're
Exactly.
dragging.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
even just to get started on it, I know, especially homebrewing wise, and if it's so hot here, brewing in the garage is not exactly the nicest thing. And I see you swatting away the flies, and that's
Yes.
another big fun thing to deal with on top
It's
of
the
everything
worst,
else.
man.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
garage door is open so just to let air in, but it's just like a
No,
freeway for flies.
there's
Yeah.
so many parallels here. Like again, you start as home brewers, you start as musicians, you start in the garage. I mean, the dream is to turn pro, and it's great when like those dreams, those ambitions, those instincts become a reality. So being able to talk to like a home brewer and being able to talk to like a pro brewer, I mean, it shows that this can happen, and it shows that there's a direct parallel between the two, and that is fucking metal. Mike, what else does the future hold for Broken Goblet? What do you have in production? How does the rest of the year look? Because the world is gradually reopening. Tell us what beers are coming out.
Well, we hope the world is gradually reopening.
Oh,
We're where we are. PA, Pennsylvania, New Jersey have done a pretty good job from a from a spike standpoint or a surge standpoint. We really hope that we're not on a bad path and we get hit with more mandates and have to change everything.
yeah,
We're trying to just stay the course. We are about to announce some pretty exciting changes here on our property with the expansion of the brewery, including a distillery and another bar kind of on property, because when we do shows and it gets crazy, like we need a kind of a place for overflow. And one of the things that we've learned in our couple of years here is that, if you drove an hour to get to the brewery and you arrive at the brewery and it's a metal show, and you don't want to be bombarded with noise for an hour, you just wanted to drink a beer, you might complain about that. So we're trying to be cognizant of that. And so we're going to make some announcements in the next couple of months with some stuff on property that's really exciting, a little bit scary, but also, like I said, with the distillery, we're going to kind of try our hands at making liquor too.
That's excellent.
As for shows, we're working on a couple metal-esque shows. We are pretty decent friends with Life of Agony, and they played here already once, and I believe they're going to be playing here again in November. Ironically, we're not like a metal show brewery, even though we're metalheads that own it.
I've
Because
seen it. All music, all types, all varieties.
Yeah, we know where our bread is buttered, and we do try to cater to everybody. So we're not always metal all the time. We're always metal in our blood, but we're not always metal on the stage, because, I'd rather have 380 people here watching a Pearl Jam cover band than 150 people here watching an awesome metal band. So, I like both of them. So I like both of that, but I really like the other one. From coming out of COVID financially. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the beers, I mean, we're going to just do what everybody else is doing, which sounds cheesy, but we're going to plug away at continuing to balance our IPAs with our Belgians and our lagers, that we're trying to crank out, and just make beer that people like, that they can drink and not hate. And when they come here, have a good experience, good time, and leave happier than they did when they got in. That's our MO.
Well said. Isn't that all we can ask? Leave happier than you did before. Leave better than you did before.
Yeah.
Yep. So, excellent. On that note, is there anything you want to say to KNOTFEST Beer Pit subscribers out there? And this goes to you as well, Eric, as a subscriber. What do we want to say to everyone out in Twitch land that's watching this here and now? Mike,
I have stuff to say.
Let's hear it, Mike.
Can you believe it?
Beer Pit.
So there's a good amount of mail order things that you can get for beer. They are, and they all have to sort of have a cutoff for how they do it. But the thing that I think is great about the KNOTFEST one is that your criteria, it doesn't appear that you are going on Untapped to see I'm sorry, I had to use the word again, but that you're not going on Untapped to see what's the hypest beer you could possibly get.
No.
And I have the utmost respect for that, because this is a curated, Adam, for those watching, Adam curated this. He's not like, send whatever the fuck you want. He wanted to know what we were brewing, what was the style, would it fit in that particular month? Did it make sense? It's and also from a value perspective, it's one of the less expensive mail order things that you could be a part of. I would highly encourage people that are watching this that have not done it to do it. You could sign up for the Beer of the Month Club that everybody does, Tavor. You could spend 3 times as much, and you're going to get 4 beers that roughly taste the same.
Yeah.
Okay? You could sign up for like the shitty beer of the month that your granddad got you for Christmas, and you are going to get old ass beer that has been around for 18 months. I know, because I got it. I got my boss from my day job bought it for me.
Me too.
I hope he's not watching. I hope you're not watching. I'm sorry. He bought it for me, and I'm like, oh, cool, more Duck Rabbit beer. This is great. Okay. A Christmas beer in June. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. I love spruce in my summer beer. Or you can sign up for the KNOTFEST Beer Pit, and you could get a variety of styles that all have this theme, which is the way it should be. So I can't speak highly enough of this, and I would encourage everybody listening to immediately go to the link and sign up for it. And I'm not just biased because we're in it. The one, do it. It's really, really good. I'm really impressed.
Mike, thank you so very much. I want to tell everyone out there in Twitch land that was not planned.
Nope.
This was not a plug, but
Nope.
I am making a bid for the most metal and the best beer club in the country. And it's not driven by hype and it's not driven by Untapped. It is all driven by the breweries. And that's why Broken Goblet is here and now. So, Mike, thank you for your very, very kind and most metal praise. Grateful for it, man.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. I mean, the variety is, I mean, the variety in the can, this the art on the cans, the stickers and the coasters and things that you get, the little prizes in there are so awesome. I've decorated everything I can possibly think of. And the variety of the beers, like the different styles. Not is it only from awesome breweries from around the country and craft breweries that like once things start really opening up again, we can start traveling. Like I can't wait to go to all these breweries just because, you know, the ambiance of like the brewery and, you know, the tap rooms, and I can't wait to go to all these. And so that's kind of hyping me in that side of it too. But just getting all the different styles of beer. Because like you said, you don't want to get 4 IPAs in there and
Yeah.
it's like drinking the same one over and over again
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do. So it's nice to have all these different styles, and you can tell how much, Adam, that you put into finding these, making sure they fit, making sure you know, that the people behind it are true to it. And this is a testament to it, you know, coming on the show and getting to talk to everybody, whether it's the band or the brewers. You know, it's so cool to kind of put it all together.
I feel the love from both of you, Mike and Eric. Thank you so very much. And again, like I've had some breweries on here that, yeah, inevitably someone like Tavor gets mentioned, and I'm not necessarily making a bid for better or worse, but I am making a bid for different. And I want this to be truly different, highly curated, and a one-of-a-kind craft beer club, all rooted in metal. Because again, I think metal people and beer people are good people. So let's keep it going and let's bring it together. Mike, I know that I want to have Broken Goblet back in the box for another month. Each box just keeps getting better and better, and thank you for being part of one of the first ones. We have a question from out there in Twitch land, Derek 6MB, who is part of the crew for the Six Most Metal Breweries and part of who is filming you, Mike, at Decibel Metal and Beer Fest. Check out our videos, our short webisodes from past Metal and Beer Fest from Decibel if you get a chance. Derek wants to know, what does Mike's shirt fully say? He can only see craft on top. So what comes below? All right. I don't know how that clap sounded into the mic, but it was sincere. Yeah. Craft beer and doom metal. You make a variety of those, don't you?
We did. We haven't done them in a while, but this year, Decibel, we'll bring back a bunch. I'm a typo negative junkie, so it just made sense. I know some people will be like, they're not doom, but they're wrong. And you know, I love typo, and so that was where that shirt came from. We do make a bunch of these.
Excellent. Most metal. Okay. I'm going to begin to wrap this up, but I want to say I think this is one of the best interviews we've had in the pit to date. Mike, is there anything else you want to say before I give all the shout outs to all the people involved in the KNOTFEST Beer Pit?
If you're in the Philly area in September for Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, check it out. It's going to be a great lineup. We're doing a collab with Dead Guy, who have not played in 2 decades. So we're doing a beer with them, and then we're also doing the festival beer, which we announced today is a barley wine that we're excited about. So we're going to do a barley wine, and then the Oktoberfest with Dead Guy. They have a documentary coming out about their band. If anybody doesn't know who Dead Guy is, but it's kind of a hardcore bridge to metalcore type of fan, you should look Dead Guy up. They are instrumental in that scene from New Jersey. And other than that, just go to your local brewery, put your phone away, sit down at the bar, talk to the bartender, and ask them for a flight of their Kolsch, their Pilsner, anything that is not an IPA, and you'll know whether they're doing the right thing or not.
I think that is the criteria. That is the best way to judge any given brewery. So we've seen and witnessed it here tonight. Derek 6MMB out there says most metal. Uh, Mike and Eric, I'm going to thank you both. I've got to give absolute thanks to our producers, Matt and Chris, to our graphic designer, Audrey, to our distribution and retail partner, Agnes, who works wonders, and to all the NotFest Beer Pit.
Hi, Agnes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything.
No. Good to give Agnes a hello. Eric, shout out to Agnes as well. I know you talk back and forth with her, and
Oh
we're so
yeah.
grateful to have you with us, man. Thank you to everyone out there subscribing to the NotFest Beer Pit. Go to notfestbeerpit.com. We're going to announce the next box for this current month within the next few days. Go to notfest.com to check out NotFest Iowa, the Roadshow, NotFest Los Angeles. And above all, I will say keep it metal. And until next time, we will see you in the pit. Cheers. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mike.